Hey guys, in this video, shit. Hey guys, Brian Burke here from GoBeyondDating.com. Brian Burke here from GoBeyondDating.com. In this video, Hey guys. Hey guys, Brian Burke here for GoBeyondDating.com. In this video, I'm going to talk about mental experience conversation. The abbreviation I use is ME. And an easy way to remember that is what makes me me? It's my mental experience. It's how I see the world, the experiences I've had, my thoughts and feelings about whatever's going on. So what makes me me is my mental experience. So this is all about me conversation.
Went to Grand Canyon University.
Is that it? I don't know where. Yeah, I mean, I know the Grand Canyon's in the state, but I'm not sure where that's at.
Yeah, it's just a university. I'm not exactly sure either, but yeah, he just started this year.
Does he like it?
Oh yeah, he loves it. Like, he just had a girlfriend for like 2 years, and the whole reason he went there was because of her, and they broke up the first day. And he's just sending me Snapchats and like talking to me how he's just meeting a bunch of girls, and I'm really happy for him. Like, he's the shy one out of all of us, and he's doing pretty good.
That's awesome.
Like, I'm pretty happy.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you ready to get started?
Already.
All right. So we're talking about me conversation. And me conversation stands for mental experience conversation. And so mental experience conversation it's how women tend to talk to each other. It's how people talk to their best friends. When you can understand it on a technical level, on a mechanical level, you can do it consciously. The way it normally happens is unconscious. You could just get to know someone better and better, and then you start to have what is called me conversation. The difference, the reason why it changes from maybe small talk or kind of feeling forced and maybe not so personal is just comfort. It's just the fact that you, over time, have become more comfortable with the person. Now, when you understand what technically changes once you become comfortable with someone, how the conversation technically changes, you can then replicate that, within the first 30 seconds of meeting anybody.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about me conversation is that you can practice it with anyone. So this isn't the kind of thing that you necessarily need to go out a lot at night to meet a bunch of women to practice. You can do me conversation with your mom and dad, or anybody you're around, your coworkers. The cool thing about it is the effect that it has with people is that they feel very comfortable with you. They also open up to you, which has sort of two layers that work in your favor. And when I say your favor, what I mean is you're able to connect with people. So that's our goal. When you connect with someone, you don't have to manipulate them. They're on your side. So this is a great way to connect with people in an authentic way, without manipulation, without having to hide your intention no matter what your intention is, it's partially selfish. You can't get away from that. But what you can do is, when people feel connected with you, they want to help you. They want to be part of your life. And so you don't have to trick anybody into helping you in whatever way that means. You don't have to trick anyone into wanting to spend time with you. You don't have to trick anyone into thinking that you're a certain way so that they'll do what you want. And that's a game, usually, is how guys approach women. How guys deal with women is they pretend to be a certain way that's different than how they are normally. And they do this because they think that it will get them what they want, which 99% of the time is sex. Right. So I don't like to get sex from women. In fact, you can't get sex from women. You can't get it from them. What you do is you give your sexual gift, yourself, which is not just physical but emotional, and then they give it back, and they give their gift to you. And so it's this giving and receiving, which is different than taking. So it's important to understand the difference between receiving and taking or getting. When you're trying to get, number one, it doesn't work. Number two, it prevents a connection from happening. Women are very, very good at sensing when a man is trying to get sex from them. But they're also very sensitive to when a man perceives his own sexuality, his own time, his own attention as something that he values and gives to people that he feels deserves it. And obviously one is much more attractive than the other. So I got a big jug of water here. It's super dry here, so I'm kind of chugging water.
Okay, I have water here too.
Especially since I'm talking a lot. Okay. So I wrote some notes up. So there's a lot of talk about, when you read about dating advice for men especially, there's talk about connecting with women. Depending on what you're reading, it could be like calling it a rapport phase or, calling it creating comfort. But it's important what word you use when you describe what you're up to, because it changes the thought track, the thought process that it sets you on. So again, if I'm trying to get comfort from the woman, that doesn't even make sense. You don't get comfort. I mean, am I comfortable? Is she comfortable? That's the question. It's not, does she give me comfort? Yeah. What you do is you can trigger comfort, but you don't want to be consciously trying to do that because, again, it looks like you have this agenda, this selfish getting agenda. Women are extremely sensitive to this. Hell, I'm extremely sensitive. I think we're all extremely sensitive to this. The word I like to use is connectable. So you want to be connectable. Don't try to connect, but instead be connectable. It's similar to thinking about trust. You don't try to get someone's trust. If you do, you're running the risk of looking like you're up to something, and you can't really control whether or not they do. A lot of times what happens, there's the phrase, you can't be manipulated unless you first try to manipulate others. Well, if you're trying to get someone to trust you, a lot of times they'll act like they do trust you. And they'll be doing it because they think they can get something from you. So you've created this whole interpersonal dynamic with this person where you're both manipulating each other. And this is how a lot of relationships between men and women are, where the guy's trying to get sex, but the woman's trying to get investment from the man. And it can even go as far as, the woman's trying to get money. That's where we hear the terms gold diggers. Well, I never have to deal with any sort of gold digging. And I date very attractive women, very beautiful women. Gold diggers are made. So you create that dynamic. You present yourself in a certain way to the woman. And she says, okay, he's a guy that I manipulate to get his money, get him to take me out to dinner, buy me things, all that stuff. You've set that precedent. You did it. And as men, we tend to be proactive. Most of the time, it's proactive, where the man sets it off and kind of sets the tone for what happens. So I tell all my guys, to take responsibility for the results they're getting. And look at yourself. Were you trying to get, if you're having difficulty with women, if maybe they're flaking on you or they seem to be playing games with you, look at yourself first. I bet most of the time, and this is not all the time. I mean, obviously some women are manipulative. They're coming out of, they have their own experiences. Maybe they've been hurt or they're kind of jaded or whatever. But most of the time, women approach new relationships with an open mind and an open heart. And
I'm sorry. What are some things that could lead a girl to being thought of being a gold digger? Like, how could you put that off to make a girl think, oh, okay, I'm gonna use it for the money?
Okay. Sure. So an example of how a guy will will shape a woman to be a gold digger. And again, I should preface this by saying, I'm going to explain some things that guys do to set this precedent. But a lot of women, especially today, because women have their own money a lot of times, they have their own jobs. Even if they're going to school, they have their own thing going, so they don't really care about your money as much. A lot of women just won't respond to these kind of behaviors that I'm about to explain. But the women that will, it'll turn into sort of this manipulative game where you're using your resources to get sex. So some of these kind of gold digger shaping behaviors are from the jump. Say you meet her at a bar, offering to buy her a drink. Now, I buy women drinks all the time, but there's an energy behind it that's different from saying, hey, can I buy you a drink so that you'll talk to me? Can I like rent you out for 15 minutes? I'll usually just do it as I'll say, hey, I'm going to go grab a drink, come with. And then I'll get her something. I'll say, what do you want? And I'll just get 2 drinks. Or I'll say something like, let's get a drink. I got the first round. Or I'll say, come have a drink with me. And sometimes I do just say, hey, can I buy you a drink? Now, this is actually interesting because, especially in sort of the seduction pickup artist community, if you still want to call it that, that's one of the rules is like, don't do that. Don't buy a woman a drink. Well, I was talking to a girl that I'm dating, and she actually said that she likes that. And I said, well, wait a second. Like, what happened? Oh, we were watching TV, and there was I think it was a Grey Goose ad or something like that. And it said, the new way to buy a girl a drink is not to say, can I buy you a drink? It's to say, can I buy you a martini? And I had a problem with this. I said, well, guys shouldn't, I said to her, I tell my guys not to buy girls drinks. I don't think that's a good precedent to set where you're buying her time essentially. And she said, well, I don't see it like that. She said, when a guy offers to buy me a drink, and this is her speaking, she said, I see it as him offering to get me a drink so that I'll loosen up, so that it's easier for me to talk to him. So you're almost saying, hey, can I help you relax so that we can have a conversation? Because she's nervous too. And I think also there's just this sort of the tradition of buying a woman a drink. It's understood. It's like a cultural code. It says, hey, I think you're pretty. I'd like to get to know you. We're at a bar, and what people do at bars is they drink. And so it's sort of this context for us to now pair off and have a conversation. So it's really not as bad or as evil as I think it's as some people say it is. But as long as your energy is not, please talk to me, I'm going to spend money so that you'll talk to me, but rather, hey, I think you're cute. Let's do this activity that people do here in this venue. I'll get the first round to help you relax because I'm not the only one nervous. You're probably nervous too. But if she decides to have a drink with you, she decides that she doesn't want to talk to you, it's because she likes you. It's because she thinks, okay, yeah, I'd like to get to know this guy. There's potential there. And And if she feels like that, she will be nervous talking to you. So you can still buy a woman a drink, but when you do it in a certain way, it can look like you're trying to pay for her time, which really means you're trying to pay for her sex. So, a lot of times what will happen when I say something like that is the woman will say, oh, no thanks, I'm fine. And then you just continue to talk to her. If she says, okay, sure, just assume that she wants to talk to you because she thinks you're interesting, and maybe she could use a drink to relax and maybe have a more fun, relaxed conversation with this new guy. Or it could just be as simple as, hey, someone's offering to buy me a drink. If someone offers to buy me a drink, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
So, it's important to understand that these behaviors look a certain way on the outside, but there's something else going on underneath, and it's that deeper layer, that intention layer that women are really focused on. Just like you're focused on her body at first, she's focused on your intention at first. And I know that sounds kind of hard to grasp as a man, but that's really where women's attention is calibrated. Your attention is to calibrate on her hip to waist ratio and the smoothness of her skin and all these things. Her radar is set to kind of check on what you're thinking, what you're all about. This is why beliefs are so important, and this is why everything I teach is based around the I-PACE focality system. Focalities are these modes of focus where you're putting your attention, and that's where a woman's attention is at. You see, if a woman wanted to attract more men, my advice to her would be, are you in good shape? How's your figure? How's your complexion? How's your hair? How are you dressing? And then how are you carrying yourself? Do you seem open and friendly, or do you seem kind of stuck up and standoffish? And all that is because I'm just trying to help her appeal to men. I'm trying to get her attractive on the level that men are looking. And so that's why I teach men to be, attract. I don't like the word attraction, but I use it for brevity. But really what you're doing is triggering respect, safety, and anticipation. So that she feels comfortable giving control to you. She wants to give control to you. And that's what being a leader is all about. People trust you and want to give control to you. So that's why everything that I teach is based on how you think. And how you think is expressed in the way you dress, the way you stand, the things you say. But the subtleties, the complexities of how all that comes out are they're so complex and so subtle, these behaviors, that it's too hard to micromanage that. And you shouldn't anyway, because if you get your mind right, all that stuff falls into place. It affects the decisions you make, and over a short period of time, you just are a guy that women are interested in. Just to kind of round out this little caveat as far as the gold digger thing, other things, obviously, spending a lot of money on a date, and then having this sort of attitude of, okay, now she owes you sex. Bragging a lot, bragging about what you have, how much money you make, what kind of car you drive. All this stuff is very common stuff that guys do. And right off the bat, you're telling the woman, hey, I'm offering my resources in exchange for sex. I'm sorry, say that again?
That'd be like when someone sets their keys on the counter, like the actual set of BMW keys or whatnot, like, could that be something to...
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. One common thing that guys do is when they walk up to the bar, they'll set their keys on the bar. If they have like a BMW, they'll make sure that their BMW car keychain thing the door opener or whatever is prominent so that women can see he's got a BMW. Other things like maybe as you walk up, maybe you got a nice watch on and you sort of shake your wrist and adjust the watch and then set your hand down on the table, like on the bar, like
little things like that.
So exactly. So like little things like that. They trigger the woman. They trigger the woman. They immediately set off the woman's radar and say, okay, this guy thinks that in order to get sex, he needs to exchange his resources. And that just says a lot of bad stuff. Number one, it says you're not used to women just liking you for who you are. It says that, you've had women manipulate you in the past and you think this is just how it goes. It says that you think, it also says that you're not good in bed. And the reason why it says that to the woman is because it says that you're not used to women just wanting to have sex with you because they like your dick and they like how you are in bed. So you've heard of the whole small penis thing with like a guy who has a Porsche and he's trying to show off or whatever.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, so this is like overcompensating where and it just indicates, the funny joke is, he's probably got a small dick, but, really that's just sort of a code for this guy's not confident about his abilities in bed. And it could very well also indicate that you do have a small dick. Now, there's nothing wrong with being under average in terms of your dick size. You can still give women just as much pleasure as a guy with a big dick. That's really not important. But I will say that women, especially now, women are more open and more comfortable with their sexuality. There's definitely more of an appeal when a guy thinks that, or when a woman thinks that a guy might be packing, or at least his dick is adequate. But most importantly, it's that he thinks his dick is adequate. There's nothing worse than a guy who's insecure about his own dick or his own abilities in bed. That's the biggest turnoff. And a lot of guys who are smaller are insecure, and so not only is he small, but now he's insecure about it, and it just causes all kinds of problems and discomfort in the bedroom or wherever. But if you are smaller, and I know this is kind of off track, but if you are smaller, that's what you have, and it's okay, and you can be comfortable with that. And that comfort with what you have, but also learning about women's bodies and learning how to be good in bed and just expressing your passion, your size is just not part of the equation anymore. She doesn't care. It's that insecurity about it that's really the big turnoff.
Yeah.
Now, where was I? Okay, the gold digger thing, spending money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I understand that. Sorry, getting off track.
Okay, so with the me stuff, so I mentioned being connectable. The way I think about being connectable is I'm comfortable opening up to people, and I'm also comfortable penetrating and learning about people. So I'm comfortable asking you a me question, and we'll go into what me questions are. But it gets personal, and you start to really kind of dig into the person's psyche, and I'm comfortable doing that because I genuinely want to learn about them. And people can feel that, and when they feel that you're genuinely interested in them, they'll open right up. We all want to be seen. We all want to feel like other people see us, and that we, big picture spiritually, we have a place in the universe, and that we're not separate from others and from all that is. And that's the sort of the spiritual conundrum that humans face, is we feel separate. And this can lead to feeling not good enough, which is men's fundamental fear, especially with women, is that, as a man, I'm not good enough. So connectable. I'm comfortable opening up so people can find something to connect to in me, but also I'm comfortable having them open up to me. The fundamental rule here is that you go first. it's very much like when people go to a pool or the beach, and everyone's concerned about whether or not the water's warm or not, whether it's cold, and that whoops. And so that first person who jumps in and says, "Hey, it's okay, the water's warm," then that gets everyone else to jump in. Another great example is, early on in an evening at a dance club or whatever, the dance floor is going to be empty until people start getting on the dance floor. And there's always that first one or two people that get on and just let loose and get crazy. Yeah. So that makes other people feel comfortable doing it. So you have to be comfortable going first and talking about yourself. This is especially true when you're doing what's called a cold approach. And I really don't like that word cold because it implies that there's a coldness that you have to overcome. But, breaking the ice, whatever it's called. Men are uncomfortable talking about themselves in a relaxed, comfortable way, in the same way that they might talk to their friends. Instead, men try to get attraction. They try to get the woman to show them interest. They try to get the woman to see them in a certain way. Yeah. I talk about identity a lot, and there's two different ways to understand identity. You can understand identity as the mask that you're wearing, or you can understand identity as what you really deep down believe about yourself. And I think the way that I teach now, and it's evolved, it's changed over time, and it probably will evolve, but I don't like to, I tell my guys, and for me personally, I don't like to think about my identity. Am I this way or am I that way? I don't like to stick to some static idea of what I'm supposed to look like, because that idea has been influenced by so much cultural bullshit, so much ideas, whether it's, James Bond movies, action movies, what a guy's supposed to act like and talk like, your friends, peers, that guy in school that all the girls liked him. So on a subconscious level, you might be trying to emulate him to some degree. And none of that is really you. So when you try to think consciously about the identity you're presenting, what you're really doing is talking about your persona, your mask that you wear. When I think about my identity, what I think about is about values. What do I stand for? What's important to me? I have a very, very strong code of ethics, but it changes. It evolves. And not only does it change, but it's very different than other people. What I believe to be right or good might be very different from what other people believe. For example, I think it's okay if a woman is married to another man. If she's unhappy and wants to sleep with you, I think that's okay. A lot of guys would disagree with me, and that's okay too. But there's a reason why I believe that. So it's not just coming from this selfish intention of, hey, I want to sleep with married women. In fact, I probably wouldn't if presented with the opportunity, just because, not because I think it's unethical, but because I don't want any drama. But if another guy wants to do that and he's okay with that, then I think that's okay, as long as no one's getting hurt. So that just goes to show how I might have a value or rule that is different, but I've thought about it. I've really paid attention to what I feel is important, and I've eliminated this false identity as much as I can, and really try to look at what I value inside. And values, you'll find, are going to drive your mental experience conversation. Because ultimately, as we go through some of these exercises, you'll see how the conversation keeps coming back to values. What's important to me? What do I think is right? What do I think is good? Where do I want to go in my life? And what kind of behavior will I accept from other people? So those are rules that I have as far as what I'll accept. So, kind of to illustrate that a little bit, bring it back down to kind of ground that idea with interacting with women and dating, you can actually, now when I say attract, what I really mean is respect, safety, and anticipation. Okay, but you can actually trigger more receptivity more respect, more sense of safety with you, and more anticipation about what's going to happen when the two of you get alone. If you disagree with her, but you really believe what you're talking about, versus just agreeing with her when you don't believe what you're talking about. So I disagree with women all the time, not on purpose. It's just I know what I stand for. I'm also open to different ideas and learning new things. Like I said, I'm always evolving. That's actually one of my values. Don't stick to some static rule if you get new information and you feel like maybe you weren't as right as you thought you were. So I'm always learning from women as well. So a lot of times I'll actually come in with a value. A woman will present her side, and I'll say, I never thought of it like that. That's really interesting. You might have something there. And then I'll ask her, like, what happened in your life that led you to believe this? So that's a me question. Let me get through some of these other ground rules. The reason why why guys don't do this already is the basic fear that you fear you're not good enough. Okay? So you're afraid that maybe you'll say something she doesn't like. Now, if you believe what you're saying, it shouldn't matter. Because you living by your own rules, you embodying your own values, should always take precedence over what others think of you, even a really beautiful woman. So there's the fear that maybe she won't like something you're saying. There's also the fear that, I guess that is the main fear. It's just you'll do something or say something that the woman decides is not good, is not attractive, is not something that turns her on. Well, it's that caring about whether or not she's turned on that turns her off. It's that worrying that you'll turn her off that turns her off. It's okay if a woman gets mad at you or annoyed with you or calls you a jerk. That's okay. Because if you stick to what you're saying, to what you believe in, she might be saying, oh, I don't agree with him, but what's happening on a deeper primal level is she respects you, she feels safe with you, and then she also senses that you won't be afraid to take control in the bedroom. Because you won't be worried about, oh, am I doing it right? And women hate that. Women hate when a guy's worried about doing it right. In fact, I just slept with a woman who told me after. She said, "I love how you just grab me and put me in the position you want, and then give it to me with all your power. Put all your weight on me." And I've been working out, so I'm pretty big now. I'm probably around 200 pounds, and I do deadlifts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty strong. And this girl's tiny, but she says guys are always worried they're going to hurt me because I'm so small. But she said, I love it. I love when you move me, put me in position. She says, I hate it when guys are scared to really just touch me with full passion, without worrying whether or not they're hurting me. Now, of course, if you do hurt the woman, it might actually turn her on a little bit. But obviously you're paying attention to her, and if she is hurting, then you just stop, just relax, and pull back a little bit. But when you're worried about what other people are thinking about you, especially with a woman, and again, she's wired to see this, to pick this up. That's the main. You're wired to see how big her tits are. She's wired to see if you care what she thinks of you. Now, you do care what she thinks about everything, but her opinion of you is not really your concern. You're just curious about her. You might even be curious about what she thinks of you, but it's not going to determine how you think about you. So, women will compliment me a lot, and I like it. It's nice, but it doesn't affect my self-esteem whatsoever. I'm usually just polite. I'll say, oh, thanks. But it's not like, oh, great, she likes me. So you have to be comfortable. You have to be not unreactive when a woman likes you, and unreactive when a woman doesn't like you, or doesn't like something you do, and unreactive when a woman does like something you do as well. Because again, your values are the most important thing. how you see yourself is more important than how others see you. What does this word say? Oh, so what I wrote here is faith, or trusting yourself. Faith is an interesting concept. Been having a lot of like religious conversations with a buddy of mine, and he, I've been thinking about faith a lot. And what I really kind of understand faith as now is just trust that things will work out the way they're supposed to. And when you do that, that allows you, that frees you to go 100%, to leave it all on the field, to be you all the way. I call it thrust, which is, as a man, making your impact, showing the universe who you are. When you're worried that things won't be okay, that maybe, in a religious sense, that maybe when you at physical death, that's the end and it's just nothing forever, which I think is a silly concept. But that if you understand that, or if you believe that that's not the case, that you are a soul that has an eternal existence, that changes how you act. You don't worry so much. You're not so worried about what you're getting, and instead it allows you to shift your attention on helping others. So these are all, Jesus or Christ-like behaviors, and so that's why I think faith is important in the Christian religion. But it's the same as trusting, and you can trust yourself, you can trust in the universe, whatever it is. But you want to trust that if you leave it all in the field, if you put yourself out there, that the chips will fall where they're supposed to fall. The good news about this is that, and good news, got the gospel, right? Good news. But the good news about this is you tend to have actually much better results in life when you operate this way than when you operate from fear and insecurity. That doesn't mean everything's going to go your way, but what it means is when things don't go your way, you don't shut down. And that's the key to success, is persevering through failure. This is a very powerful way to operate, and women can sense this. This is what women are looking for in a man. You want to trust that the experiences you've had in life are interesting if you express them as experiences rather than objective material facts. In fact, there are no facts. It's kind of a funny way to say it, but there are no objective facts. There's no objective reality. There's only subjective experience. Even at the quantum level, we know this when scientists try to observe electrons. We know that everything even at the most basic level is subjective. Time and space are relative. It's all subjective. So when you're talking about facts, you're not really talking about anything, which is kind of a different way of seeing it, because as men, we tend to think of how women talk as not talking about anything. You're just going back and forth talking about their emotional experiences. But there's actually a lot of substance to that. There's a reason why they do that. Women do that for a purpose, and it seems like they don't have a purpose, but it's a different purpose than men have. Actually, hold on, I should say it's the same purpose that men have when men talk. As men, a lot of times we focus on external details. If we're talking about, cars, we focus on the mechanics of the car. Whereas, a woman might talk about the experience of driving fast, or the color, the exciting color it has and things like that. Women like sports cars, but they like them for different reasons than men like them. Actually, that's not quite true. They like them for the same reasons men like them. It's the emotional experience. That's the only reason to like something. That's the only motivation anyone has. But the way they talk about it is different. Women talk more about the experience, and men talk more about what the car maybe has under the hood. And so when a guy's talking about the engine or whatever, I start imagining what it would be like to drive that car. Whereas a woman might talk about what it's like to drive the car. Okay? So you can see that it's not pointless. It's not that there's no purpose to it. It's just a different way of expressing yourself, just as relevant and I think true in the subjective sense as the way men talk about stuff. So when you talk about your experiences, there's the fear that maybe your experience is not, again, not good enough. It's not interesting enough. It's not cool enough. Well, it is interesting, but to a woman, you need to express it in a way that she understands, and then she'll be interested in it. You know, someone, let's say you don't speak Mandarin, so you meet this Chinese person, and they're telling you the greatest story ever, but you don't understand it, so you don't enjoy the story. It's very similar to the way men talk to women. They're not speaking in a language that women understand. So what you're going to do, what I'm going to teach you to do, is think about your experiences, your stories, the things that have happened in your life, in terms of mental experience. And you're going to try to find the lesson, the crux of the story, the climax, the theme. What's most important about this? Every great movie has it. Every great novel or short story has it. Every good story has this transformation or this lesson that happened to the main character. This emotional experience that the main character had that, you know, made a big impact on their life. And when I say big, it doesn't have to be like life-changing. It can be, you know, something as simple as, you know, so now every time you think about what happened, you crack up, you know. So it can be something as small as that. And what's interesting, you know, I mentioned you crack up, you laugh. We've all heard the advice that, you know, what turns women on, what attracts women? Well, sense of humor is always up there in like the top 3. So there's this idea of, okay, well, how do I be funny? You guys want to know how to be funny. Well, what's funny is mental experience. Now, we think about great comedians. Some current ones that I like are Jim Gaffigan, Chris Rock, Louis C.K. My favorite is Bill Burr. Now, what these guys are really good at is, and especially Bill Burr and Louis C.K. and Gaffigan. Chris Rock does a lot of social commentary. But what these guys are really good at is talking about their mental experience. And a lot of times their mental experience is kind of weird. It's maybe different than everyone else's. And yet there's something about it that you can relate to as well. There's an insecurity that he's expressing. There's a self-doubt. There's an embarrassment. There's a ridiculousness, an irrationality behind his experience that we can all relate to. And maybe he's a little out there, but that irrational thought process, that irrational thought process, maybe, you know, the small situation that just annoys the hell out of him, and he figures out some ridiculous way to get out of it, and then tells you what he's thinking as he comes up with this scheme to get out of this uncomfortable situation. Is we relate to that. You know, I was just having a conversation in the car with my buddies, and I wish I could remember exactly what happened, but my buddy said he was in a situation where all he wanted to say to the person was, "I want this conversation to end now." And I thought that was hilarious, and I could totally relate to it. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's you know, so much of my days, me thinking I want this to end now." So, you know, you might be laughing at that, but why? Is that really all that funny? You can relate to that, okay? Yeah. So that's mental experience in a nutshell. It's a great example of that. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to tell you 3 stories, and I'm going to point out to you what's important. And they're sort of, I picked these ones because they're all different, but you're going to see the commonalities in them. All right. Get some water. Okay. Okay, the first story, I call it my MacGyver story. So this was something that happened to me when I was maybe 20. I knew I couldn't drink legally at the time. It was one of those kind of drunken college stories. So, me and a buddy, we had some beers that, I don't know where they came from. We were just at his house, and we got really, really drunk off these like cheap, they were like Steel Reserves or something horrific. Something now that I would like, just to look at it, just looking at the can, like repulses me. Okay, so now notice that you might have, you laughed at that, you chuckled at that. I just explained not just what we were drinking, but how I feel, how I think about that drink now. At the time, I was, 20. I didn't have any money, and I definitely didn't have any standards. Okay, so that's something else you can probably relate to. So we got hammered. We decide we're going to go walk around. We're in the college campus area. And we're walking around, and my buddy gets this idea. He says, "Hey, man, I know where we can get some sake." Okay, the Japanese rice wine. And I say, "Oh, great." He's like, "Yeah, my buddies have this bottle of sake back at their place." I said, "Oh, great, let's go." So notice he says buddies. We get to the house, and he doesn't knock. He just very quietly opens the door like he's a ninja. So now I'm thinking, are these really his buddies? It turns out it's this co-op house where kind of like a lot of hippie type people stayed. And we sneak in, and I'm just following his lead at this point. I realize these aren't his buddies, so, I realize we can't get caught. We sneak into the kitchen. And he goes right to this cupboard, opens it, and there's this huge bottle of sake with all his Japanese writing, like maybe it was something someone brought back from a trip to Japan or something. And we take it, and we go outside to sort of this dark area around some bushes, and we both just chug it. So at this point, things get pretty hazy for a while. I remember, a few really just ridiculous interactions, just gibberish, nothing too exciting, just it was kind of blurry, and I was stumbling around. And then I decide, okay, I need to find my car and go to sleep. And I don't know where my buddy is at this point. So I'm going to go to my car, I'm going to sleep the rest of the night, and then I'm going to drive myself home in the morning. So I go to the car. So I decide that, so I don't get lost, I'm going to make as straight of a line to where my car is parked as possible. Now that's like maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away, like just under a mile. But I have to go through this neighborhood, so there's like trees and houses and stuff in my way if I were going to make a laser beam line to my car. And it's on this parking structure, and I can kind of see the lights of it, so I know where it's at. So I'm going straight there. I didn't realize how late it was, but as I'm stumbling around, the sun starts coming up. So as the sun's coming up, and I walk through this yard, and I come to this really big fence. This chain link fence is really tall. It's like taller than me if I were to put my hand up. So I have to climb up this fence. Now I get to the top. This is very dangerous behavior. So like I'm not advocating this, but I get to the top, and it's the little twisty, spiky points at the top. So I'm trying to climb over, and as I climb over, I slip, and my pant leg, the cuff of my pant leg, gets caught on one of the spikes. So I fall, but I don't fall all the way. I fall, and I'm swinging like a pendulum. I'm swinging from this fence upside down. So I'm like, shit, I'm like trapped. I'm trying to touch the ground, but I can't reach it. And my back is to the fence, so there's not a lot I can do here. And then I'm looking around, and I realize the big yard belongs to this big fraternity that are kind of known as being meatheads, just like kind of those bro type guys.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, great, if these guys see me, like I'm done. I don't know they'll probably spray a bunch of stuff on me and take pictures, and it could be bad. So I got to get out of here. So when I was younger, when I was like, I don't know, maybe I don't know, fourth. I'd have to think of what years it was. But when I was younger, they used to play old MacGyver episodes, and I loved MacGyver. I thought MacGyver was like the coolest show ever. And at this, this is much later. I'm like 20, and I start thinking, what would MacGyver do? So I'm thinking, what would MacGyver do? And I'm like looking at all the items of clothing, and I'm starting to think like in this really critical thinking way. And I say, oh, I'll just unbutton my pants. So I think I'm so clever thinking outside of the box here. So I unbutton my pants and immediately just thump, I fall straight down. So I get up, I have no pants on. I have one shoe on. It's like the other shoe, I like slid it off with my other foot. So I have no pants on. And so I'm just so proud of myself. I go and I take my pants off the hook and I put my pants back on. And then I go to my car and I sleep for like 5 hours, and then I drive myself home. So that's my MacGyver story. So at every step, you can see how I'm detailing what I'm thinking as the story's progressing. Yeah. And why I'm doing things. And why is the main me question. It's the fundamental me question. Why? Because when you ask someone why about, something they did, and you say why, immediately they have to go inside into their mental experience and think of why they did it. Now, what's cool about this is that you can start to figure out what motivates people. And a person's motivation is everything. You can relate then to what motivates them, what's important to them. Again, you're going first, and I'm focusing on statements and stories right now. So I've given someone a lot to relate to. What happens a lot of times when guys first meet a woman or anybody is they don't really give the other person anything to latch onto, anything to relate to. And women especially, they're wired to latch onto the emotion, to the mental experience. I interchange emotion, feeling, and mental experience because it's really all the same thing. So when I give this person emotions and these thoughts, whether they're good, interesting, sort of value-based decisions, or whether it's just ridiculous, silly, drunken thought processes, there's going to be something there that they can relate to. What might happen a lot of times with people who are insecure and uncomfortable is that they might act like you're silly, or that they're above what you're saying. They're above all that. They might say, "Oh, you're weird," or "You're crazy," or "Wow, I don't know about that." And when someone does that, my immediate interpretation is that they're not comfortable being silly with me yet. I don't see it as, "Oh, I'm wrong." I see it as, "Oh, you're not comfortable yet," and that's okay. Okay, so I'll jump to another story. Now, this story is more deep. It's emotional. And these are all true, by the way. This is about volunteering with kids. So when I was living in New York City, I lived in Brooklyn, and there's the Marcy Projects, which is kind of these famous projects. Jay-Z grew up there. It's kind of around the area where Notorious B.I.G. grew up, and so it's kind of a well-known place, but it's rough. It's real rough there. And so I signed up with New York Cares, which is a citywide volunteering organization. And I've always enjoyed working with kids. I coached soccer, youth soccer, and all that. So I picked, I wanted to go with a program that dealt with kids. So there's after-school reading program in a special needs school. So these are kids who maybe have some developmental issues, come from broken homes, that kind of stuff. So I volunteer at this place, and I'm going, it's once a week after school. I'm going there, and you get paired off with the kid, and you pick out a book that's at their reading, it's at where they're at, and you want to help them progress in reading levels. So I'm really loving this. This is great. I'm working with these kids. It's very fulfilling. And I'm kind of focused on like how to teach them to read better. Well, I stayed after to help clean up one day, and the woman who ran it said, a lot of these kids, I've told this story so many times, but I still get choked up when I tell it. A lot of these kids are here because it's better than being at home. So I'm getting choked up as I say this. I mean, it's a very profound thing that she told me, and that really changed me, because at that point I decided that no matter what I did in life, career-wise or whatever, I would have to make time to help kids. And so my commitment to this organization grew stronger, and I started signing up for other projects, and ever since that I've been more involved in volunteering with kids. So again, you can see how something happened, my thought process, I learned something that was kind of unexpected, something I wasn't really ready to hear yet, or I wasn't expecting to hear, and then it changed me, and now the way I think and see the world is different. And you can see also, this is coming down to values. My 3 values are help, play, try. So whatever I'm doing with my life, I want to make sure I'm helping others. I also want to make sure I'm having fun. I want my life to be enjoyable. Otherwise, why get out of bed? And then trying new things is another big value, because I think the spice of life is new experiences. So I like to, when I go to a restaurant, I always like to try something different that I haven't had before. I don't like to watch movies over and over again. I like to find new movies and books and all that stuff. So I'm big on new experiences. So that's try. So those are my core values. Nowhere in there is, be cool. That's not a value of mine. But what happens is a lot of people end up thinking I'm cool. And that might sound like a conceited thing to say, but there was a long time in my growing up, up until into my 20s, where people didn't think I was cool. People didn't really like me that much, except for a couple close friends. But now people tend to think that, and I hear this. It's not coming from me. People say this to me, that I'm interesting, I'm cool, I have a lot of presence and that kind of stuff. And that's because when I was younger, I was trying to be cool, and now I'm not. So now I am cool. Okay? So a lot of this stuff is like counterintuitive. I personally think that the coolest people are weirdos, they're eccentric, kind of strange people. And I think almost all people are. I mean, obviously you have a range. Some people are just more average than others. But I definitely think that most people have some quirks and some interesting parts of them that what's different, all people have that, but what's different is their comfort showing it. If you're uncomfortable showing that, it can create problems. Number one, the people that would like you and like your weirdness and want to show you their weirdness, they don't know that you're weird. So they don't see this. So a potential connection that could have been really cool and interesting is not possible. You'll also have people in your life that maybe aren't interesting or not helping you evolve as a person. They're not. Maybe even you have negative people because you're afraid to show them who you are and say, hate me or love me, whatever you want, but this is me. So there's a lot of talk about polarization in marketing, but also in psychology. You want to be, I think it's most, marketing is psychology, but I think it's most important to be comfortable with people not liking you because then the people that you don't resonate with are not in your life, and the people that you do resonate with, you find them and boom, you're friends. The idea that you can go out and just approach any woman and connect with her, sleep with her. There's a lot of claims about that, and especially when it comes to like dating advice, different dating products for guys. There's a lot of claims like that. Meet any woman and sleep with her in 10 minutes or whatever. That's bullshit. And hopefully anyone watching, anyone reading that, I guess could be watching too, because a lot of it is videos. But anyone who reads that hopefully would understand that that's bullshit. Your conversion rate is going to be, I'm trying to think about mine. A lot of this is kind of a caveat, but a lot of I should say a tangent, but a lot of your conversion rate will depend on other factors outside of your personality. So, for example, if you're in a city where there's way more men than women versus way more women than men, that will affect the response rate when you text a woman or call her or try to set up a date or something. My conversion rate in New York City was way better than it was in San Diego. But not by much, but I did notice a difference. It was noticeable. But there's other things like your obviously what kind of shape you're in, how you dress, where your personal happiness is with yourself will affect how women respond to you. But then there's other issues, like if you're older and you're going for younger women, women that are far out of your age range, that can affect your conversion rate. Now, you can still date a lot younger women, or vice versa, if you're younger and you want to date older women, whatever. But the further away your age range is, that can affect your conversion rate. It's not impossible, but you'll see a difference. You just see a difference. So why was I? Oh, the reason why I was talking about that was because there's sort of this idea that if you meet a woman or you approach a woman and it doesn't go well, that's bad. That's somehow your fault or there's something wrong with you. Well, the reality is you're not going to sleep with most women you meet. Out of all the women I talk to, I probably end up sleeping with, I don't know, anywhere between 10 to 30%. I always just say I bat about 300, which is good in baseball. And so it's, works out. Sometimes I'll go out, meet one woman, I'll go home with her, or maybe we'll go out a few days later or something like that. Or maybe, our schedules are conflicting and it'll take a few months. But it's very hard to keep statistics on this, but you can kind of sense it. My point is, when you put yourself out there, when you jump in the pool first, or you're okay being the first person on the dance floor, when you open up and you tell one of these stories right off the bat, or you're comfortable just talking about your own mental experience with whatever's going on, you'll find that the women that could potentially resonate with you really resonate with you, and the women that don't, you don't waste your time. So it's sort of this polarization process, and you'll find that when we're talking about like not wasting a lot of your time chasing after women, which I don't want guys to do. I don't want anyone to, unless you really want to spend a lot of your time doing that. I don't think most guys do. They might enjoy going out from time to time, but I don't think most guys want to spend all their energy chasing women. And that's a big problem with, the pickup artist stuff, is that they put the chasing women, the chase, this constant pickup, they make that the most important thing in their lives. And that's problematic in a lot of ways. What I'd like to see for any guy is that meeting women is not very time consuming. It's easy. It doesn't trigger a lot of fear and emotional upset. It's an easy, relatively timely process that doesn't take you away from your goals and what you could be doing with your life, impacting the world in your unique, positive way. Is there anything else I want to say about that? Okay, anyways. The way I'll wrap that up is to say that guys who are good with women, especially guys who are naturally good with women, who didn't go through the process of learning, kind of like how we are, or how I did, and I continue to do, and how you might be doing, is guys who are naturally good with women are very comfortable with hearing no. They're okay with rejection. It doesn't bother them. They don't take it personally. For me, my development for a long time, I was really focused on doing whatever I could to not hear no. And that actually held me back. It helped me tweak a lot of things. But then it got to a point where, you know what? Cost benefit, I'd rather just hear a no than try to run game and try to push this when the dynamic is already that I'm chasing her. I don't want that to be the dynamic. I approach her, first few seconds, I'm initiating, I'm making more of an effort. But after that, I want it to be pretty equal. And then typically what happens is after you're intimate with a woman, after maybe, and by intimate, it could be anything from a heavy makeout session, maybe just a really nice kiss, or sex or whatever. When the woman feels really turned on, when she feels a sexual connection with you, that actually starts to switch to where she tends to make more of an effort towards you. And that's because women actually like to do that. They like to kind of earn the man. They like to inspire him. They like to dance for the man and get him turned on. They like to nurture the man and care for him so that he wants to pleasure her and give her his time and attention. And then at that point, it's just a matter of letting her do it, just giving her opportunities to be a woman with you. So one more story. Now this story is very sexual, and I'm illustrating this because a lot of times I like to talk about, how can I put it? A big part of what I teach is setting a sexual precedent early on with a woman. So she sees you as a sexual man, and she sees you as a guy who's comfortable with his cock, a guy who's comfortable using his cock on women, using it with them, sharing it with them. That might sound very, raw or like controversial, but as a man, if you kind of look at it and, kind of look at yourself and reflect on this, that's a big part of your comfort with escalating, with moving forward, with being proactive, with making a move is, where's this going physically? My penis going into her. And I want her to like it. I want her to enjoy it. I want it to make her feel good. And that carries with it vulnerability, because what if she doesn't? And this is the source of the penis enlargement pill industry. Guys are so worried about this. But setting a sexual precedent where the woman can tell that you're comfortable with your body, not just your cock, but your whole body. I think it communicates a lot of good stuff. The outwards communication, what women see are messages. So you have the focality, and that comes out physically as a message. And that's how humans communicate, is through messages, not through literal communication, but through messages. So this last story is basically, I've told this story a few times to women that I've just met, and it was after, I don't know, maybe a few minutes 20 minutes of conversation. One woman, it was the first time we actually met up for a date after initially meeting, and sort of came out of, excuse me, I got a burp. Excuse me. My burp is going to be on the recording, by the way. Sorry about that. Okay, so this story is kind of, the lead into it is about crazy things we've done, being, dating and kind of being crazy when we were younger and that kind of stuff. And this story, I say, actually one of the craziest things I've ever done. And, stop me if this is too much information, because, I don't want to offend your delicate sensibilities. So I'll say, yeah, so I'll say that to the woman, what it does, or I could also say, I could also say, I feel comfortable with you, so I'm going to tell you the story, I feel like I can be honest with you, I can be pretty open with you. Now, what that's doing is that setting the frame where if she says, no, don't tell me this story, or if she decides she doesn't like this story, she would be agreeing, she would be saying that she's, not interested in being open or honest. She might be saying that she's a prude. So I want to set the dynamic right off the bat where we can just like tell each other these crazy stories. Now, this carries with it the comfort that women, you're probably not the first guy she's been with either, so you might hear a crazy story back. So a lot of guys don't like to hear about, the woman's sexual history, and I'm comfortable with that now. And women can sense that, and that's why women are comfortable sleeping with me very fast, because they know that there's no judgment. They know that if they do something wild with me, if they get intimate with me, I'm not going to see them as less valuable human beings. Okay, so the craziest thing, one of the craziest things I've ever done was, actually pretty recent. I was at a bar, and there was this really cute girl, and she was talking to this guy, and it looked like they exchanged numbers, and then he walked off. And so I kind of knew that they weren't together, but the first thing that popped in my head was, hey, was that your boyfriend? And she's like, no. And she kind of gave me this up and down look, like she liked how I looked. And she kind of like sort of like did this thing with her lips where she sort of licked her bottom lip. And I was like, God, you're the sexiest DSLs, which is a pretty ballsy thing to say, but you know what that stands for. And she started laughing, and she said, yeah, I know. And then my response was, I know it's really forward, but like I love blowjobs, and like that's like the first thing I thought of when I saw you. Now, at this point, she could have slapped me or whatever, but instead she like smiled, and she was like, I know, it's awesome. So I'm like, oh, great, game on. This is a good conversation. So then the next the conversation went into like size, and she was like, I said something about do you like guys who are bigger or average? I didn't say smaller because that would be a weird question, but I said, how big do you like? She was like, I like bigger ones, but not so big that I can't get it in my mouth. So this is the conversation, like getting super kinky, like right off the bat. And I'm like, well, I bet you'd love mine then. So she's like, well, show it to me. So I'm like, okay. But I'm like, it was funny because I was actually kind of turned on. But then when she put me on the spot, I actually got a little shrinkage. I was like, oh shit. Because I was like nervous. I was like, oh my God, like a moment of truth. So I was like, okay, well, I can't do it here. I'll go to jail. So I was like, well, why don't we just like go outside? Like, let's go out back. Because there's like an alley area. I was like, let's go out back. She's like, well, I can't leave my friends. And I was like, well, it'll just be a sec. We'll come right back in. So she said, okay, but you have to show my friend too. So I'm like, your friend's a girl, right? So she says, yeah. So she grabs her friend as we're walking out, and it's this really cute. The first girl was this really cute Asian girl with like these really full lips. And her friend is like this really petite, I would say Middle Eastern looking girl, maybe like Persian or something, all done up, like looks really pretty. And she whispers something to her, and then we all three of us go outside. And I'm like, I'm having this self-talk, like, all right, Brian, you can do this, like, calm down, show them what you got, And I'm kind of grabbing on it a little bit, trying to work myself up. So we go outside in the back, and just as it's getting closer to like where like this, we just find like this dark spot like next to these cars, and I'm like starting to get and I'm starting to get really turned on now, and so I got like a half a chub, and so we get out to these cars, and they just stand there and look down, and I'm like, okay, and I take it out, and then the one girl, the Asian girl, like takes it in her hand, she's like, wow, your cock is beautiful, and I'm like, oh my God. So that was like instant boing. Like now I'm hard as a rock because that's what every guy wants to hear. Like she's instantly like, making me like that was like the ideal reaction, right? Yeah. So now I'm super turned on, and I look to her friend. I'm like, do you want to touch it? And she starts playing with it. So I got two girls like fondling me, and her friend is like, it's really girthy, and she like does this like thing where she like measures the width with her fingers. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is like straight out of a porno. Like I'm super turned on. And so I'm like, well, now I want them to suck on it, right? So I'm like, why don't you guys suck on it? So they both take turns. They don't like drop on their knees. They both like just like lean over. Like the one girl does it for a little bit and then she like hands it to her friend. So I'm in heaven, but I'm also like nervous, like, cause I can hear people like walking around and stuff. So, and it was sort of getting close to like last call. So like people are coming outside and shit. And so they're both like doing this, taking turns. And then they sort of like perk up and they like, I guess maybe they heard people too. And the one girl's like, okay, we want you to come, hurry up and come. And I'm like, oh, like I can't just do it on command. So then they look at each other, like do the little eye code where they like look at each other like, okay, we got to go. And they just bail on me. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm standing there like, literally with my dick in my hand. Like, and I'm like, that was like the most awesome, but the like shittiest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, talk about blue balls, dude.
Yeah. So, that was like the craziest, most like coolest thing. And, but also like, it was really frustrating at the end. So I had to, I like put it back in my pants. I went in and like got one more drink and I got like a big IPA that was really strong and I was like pissed. So I just smashed it, went home and passed out. I was like, damn it. Actually I probably jerked off when I got home. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure I did. But, so yeah, but it's funny because like, I don't know, like I was nervous, but then ever since then, like I've been way more comfortable, like just, I guess, getting naked in front of a woman and showing her what I got. And, that was probably something I was kind of nervous about before, but now I'm like really comfortable with it. Okay. So now you can see, as a man, you can see like there's layers to this shit.
Yeah.
And, every time I've told this story, the women love it and they're dying. They're like cracking up and their eyes are getting big. That big smile, their mouth opens real wide and their eyes, and that even happened like, with the one girl I told her, as soon as I said the DSL comment, she got the really big eyes and her jaw dropped. And I was like, yeah, exactly like that. So now she's imagining my dick in her mouth. Okay. And then now I'm telling her like what the girls said. And so they're like, now the girl's like thinking, okay, this guy's dick is like solid, like this might be something fun to play with. Right. I'm also setting the precedent that I'm wild. I'm adventurous. I'm spontaneous. I'm showing vulnerability. Which is like charming. It's like, she's kind of like, oh, but it's like, it's cute too. You know what I mean? So I'm expressing basically, I almost think about my cock as like this thing it's powerful, it's exciting to women, but it's also vulnerable. It's a symbol of who I am as a man. I'm strong, I'm powerful. I want to penetrate, I want to thrust, but I'm also a human being. I'm made of flesh and blood, and I have doubts and fears just like everyone else. And it's that contradiction that is so beautiful and attractive to women, where a man is vulnerable, but he's still thrusting, he's still going out, right? He's still trying. So there's that aspect to it. And then there's also me setting a precedent that, yeah, if you get alone with me, I probably will whip it out. And that's actually a really good kind of thing for a woman. A lot of women, that's something I do more than anything, the kind of the first sexual move, like when we're getting our clothes off. And I found that women are like, they like that. And there's a lot of reasons why I go heavy into this in all the different ways. I have like a million more stories and techniques for this, that I break down in Sexual Supremacy, the big home study course. But, this is going to lead to a blowjob. This is going to lead to sex. It sort of detours the typical route, which is to try to get her clothes off. Again, try to get. And a lot of women are uncomfortable with their bodies. I'd say most women are. And especially with the guy that they just met. They're afraid too. Maybe I'm afraid that, is it big enough, blah, blah, blah. But but women are afraid of, does he like my tits? What about this extra fat on my stomach? All these little things. So, I've found that going first, women like it. Women also, I think, just like seeing a guy's dick. They like seeing it hard, especially. They like having the sort of the freedom to just play and get to know this thing that's going to be going in them. I think it turns them on. They see it and they think about how it would feel inside of them. And it just shows that how turned on you are about it. Now, I don't just go around flashing women. There's an art to it, and you don't want to be creepy and scare women, and that's kind of why this is something that if you want to learn more about this, you should kind of figure out how to do it right. But I'm setting this precedent, and with each woman that I told this story with, once we were alone, like that's the first thing that they went for. They put their hand on me and felt it, and then it came out, and then they were sucking on it, and then that led to sex, and so I'm setting this precedent where I'm a man with a cock that women like, and I'm comfortable pulling it out, using it, letting the woman be comfortable with it herself and play with it and get to know it, and instead of me trying to push on her and put pressure on her. So these are all really good things to communicate to women. So that's a really powerful story. So these are three really kind of quintessential me conversation stories, and most of the stories, most of the things I say are not that long or developed or have that many layers of things that are triggering respect, safety, and anticipation. But those are sort of the three like good examples, and then most of it is less substantial than that, less entertaining and long and developed as that. But those illustrate the principles. Okay, so now let's do a random word exercise. By the way, let me stop for a sec. Do you have any questions?
No, not really. I did earlier, but I don't know what it was. But I think you got answered. Well, I figured it out as you went on.
Okay.
But I'm good.
Okay. All right. What we're gonna do is you're gonna throw me a random word. Okay, so we'll start with a random word. Okay, so I'll take a random word, and then I will tell a short me statement story based on that random word, and it's gonna be something that's true from my life. Okay, so throw me a random word. Try to do a noun.
Oh, noun?
Mm-hmm.
Movie theater.
Okay, so the first random word is movie theater. When I go to see a movie, I have a very specific place that I like to sit because I feel like, if I'm spending, $50 to see this stupid IMAX thing, I want it to be like, because I can get pretty much any movie I want for free online. So if I'm gonna take the time to go to a movie, pay all the money, I want to make sure it's like perfect. And I'm definitely a perfectionist. So I like to sit in the first row of the second section, right behind the metal barrier. That way I can put my feet up. There's nobody in front of me, and I feel like it's the perfect place to optimize the screen size. So I've put a lot of thought into this, but the screen size is not going to be so overwhelming that I have to tilt my head back, but I'm not going to be so far away that I can see other things in my peripheral vision. So, and I can put my feet up. So I like to go to movies like really early and just post up right there, and that's the perfect spot for me. Okay?
Wow.
So let's do another let's do another random word.
Let's say
Disneyland. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you my opinion. So the next random word is Disneyland. I'm just going to tell you my random opinion on Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland. I kind of think the idea is silly because I've never really been into like the Disney movies. I think, I don't know, they're not as dark and as interesting as the movies that I like to watch. So I never really got into any of the movies. Even as a kid, I thought they were corny. You know, my favorite movie as a kid was like Beverly Hills Cop or RoboCop has always been my favorite. But you know, I didn't like the cartoons. I've never liked cartoons. I can't get into it because it doesn't look real, and that's what I really like about any kind of art or any kind of, whether it's a movie or something like that, is it's real. So I've never had any interest going to Disneyland. It seems very creepy, and I just picture like a lot of fat tourists just walking really slow, which drives me crazy because if I want to go somewhere, I want to get there. I don't want to like have to deal with some fat tourist who's like looking up and looking all around, taking pictures and stuff. All right. So obviously I'm very opinionated about Disneyland.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay. I want you to try a couple and then I'm going to coach you through them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. First random word is apartment.
Apartment. Okay. My first apartment I got was with one of my best friends. His name was Pepe, and he had a really good job. Like, he's a construction worker. He was pretty good. I'm an electrician, so like we got along perfect, like peas in a pot.
Mm-hmm.
But we also had this guy. His name was Ricardo. He didn't have that good of a job, but at the time I really wanted to get out of the house because I just didn't want to be home anymore. It was hard bringing girls home, so like I had to be, shh, now my mom's quite sleeping, they be quiet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to get out of the house, so we just said, all right, Ricardo, you have a job right now, so let's just get you aboard. And for the first, like, 5 months, it was amazing. Like, the rent was getting paid, no problems, life was living. But then all of a sudden, Ricardo lost his job, like me and Pepe both knew. And we still went through with it. We don't know why, but he had to drop off, and me and Pepe couldn't carry the rent. And so we had to move back with our parents. And right now, I'm actually renting out a place that my grandma owns, so that's where I'm staying at. But that's kind of what I have about apartments.
Okay, so I would say the most kind of entertaining or interesting or funny part of that was the fact that, you know, how old were you when you had to move back home?
21.
Okay, so, you know, you're enjoying yourself, you're living this great bachelor lifestyle with your buddies, and then just because this other guy who couldn't pay his rent, who, you know, you should have known you're going to have problems with him, you know, he moved out, so you had to move back home. So so you could even say, like, so yeah, when girls would ask me, like, where do you live? I had to tell them I lived at home because of this asshole Ricardo. Okay, you see how that's a little more funny? Because it's like,
Yeah.
it's a little stronger opinion. It's a little more, I guess, exaggerated about the lesson and all that. Or not the lesson, but the sort of the punchline. And I would say initially the lead-in, try to shorten it.
Okay.
You'll find that certain stories come up a lot. I mean, obviously the ones that I told you, you know, a lot of the stories that you'll find you talk about with women, it's not like you have a list, but and the stories change, of course. But at any given point in your life, let's say you go out on a weekend and you meet maybe 6 women. You approach 6 women. Say you approach maybe, I don't know. You approach 6 women. You get in conversations with 3 or 4. Out of those 3 or 4, you're probably going to tell a couple of the same stories. That's okay. That's because those stories are kind of at the forefront of your thoughts right now. Also, in those initial conversations with people, there's a lot of the common themes that come up, and I'll give you some of these common themes that happen. Let me get some water. Hold on. A lot of the common themes that happen or that come up when you first meet women are going to be, travel, where you're from, obviously, what you do, work, school, hobbies, fitness, health, pets. I'm trying to think what else. Music, movies. Now that's okay. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like common small talk fodder, but what you want to do is talk about it in a mental experience way. And that will make it interesting. For example, if you have a funny story about your pet recently that happened, you can ask the woman, do you have any dogs? If she says yes or no. If she says yes, ask her about it, and then you can tell your dog story. Or if she says no, you can say, oh, you're better off that way. My dog is a XYZ. She might not know what it is, so you describe it. It's one of those little tiny ankle biters, or it's one of those big dogs, whatever. And then you tell the story about what your dog did, and the whole time inserting your thought process during the events. In the next lesson, I'm going to teach you a pattern. The full pattern is excuse me, cutie. And this is the general pattern that fast, connective conversations happen in. So in an interaction that, within a few minutes, the woman is really into you and you guys are touching, there's physical escalation, there's a sexual spark going on. Those interactions tend to follow this pattern, and it's ECXSQSMEQT. So if you say it out loud, it sounds like excuse me, cutie. Each letter stands for something. Okay. Well, the part that I'm going to focus on is SQSME. That stands for simple or social question, statement, and then ME stands for mental experience. So the way that's going to work is, you're going to ask a simple social question. Where are you from, for example? It's super easy. And then she's going to say wherever she's from, if she grew up here or if she's from somewhere else, whatever. And then you're going to ask her what her mental experience is about it. So you can say, what was it like growing up here? Or if she's from somewhere else, you can say, so what's the difference between here and there to you? So you can see how those types of questions are going to elicit a bigger response. So you're going to get a response that's more about her emotions, and that now we're talking. Now we're really talking. Now, the pattern SQS means you ask a simple question, where are you from? And if she gives you a one-word answer, oh, I'm from here. You answer your own question. So you say, oh, well, I just moved here. And then you say what you think about it. And so far it's cool. I like blah, blah, blah. This is kind of strange about this detail about this place, but, I'm getting used to it. It reminds me of XYZ. This is all mental experience language. Then you ask her. Now, at that point, she might just start relating to you in mental experience terms. If she's like, oh, that's cool, then you just ask her, you ask her to say what you just said. So the statement you made is sort of like you demonstrating what kind of answers you want from her. What kind in terms of mental experience. So, your answer was how has it been for you moving here? So what I want you to do then, you say that, and then you go back to her and you say, so what's it like? What was it like growing up here? Or what was it like moving here? What changed for you? So that's going to elicit the kind of answer that you gave her. So again, we're going back to the fundamental rule of going first. You asked a simple question, which is a great way to start it off. And then you answered your own question in the way that you want her to answer next time. And if she doesn't just relate on her own, then you ask her that mental experience question. what I want to do, let's do one more random word for you, and then I'm going to leave you with a list of questions, and then we're just going to do an email over the next week. We're going to do an email exercise where you send me an email and I reply. Also, obviously, I want you to review this call, and then your next on the next call, we'll get more into more of a sort of role playing, excuse me, cutie stuff. All right. Okay, so I'll give you another random word. Random word is, let me think. Fighting.
Fighting.
Or fight.
A fight?
Just fight.
Okay. When I was a little kid, I would always be picked on because I was chubby, nerdy, straight A student. Not really sure what happened to that, but I got picked on. I was a little nerd. And I always wanted to learn how to defend myself because no one else would. People always just see the bullying happen. No one really even does anything except for my mom, which just leads to embarrassing situations.
Yeah.
But I asked my parents, Dad, I don't want to get picked on anymore. This sucks. And he agreed. And he was a black belt in Taekwondo. But I was like, nah, I want to do Muay Thai. Like, because I skateboard, I was good with my feet. And I did Muay Thai for a year. And turns out, when I was in 7th grade, this kid, I don't remember his name, but he was a tall Mexican kid, pretty big for a 7th grader. But started stuff with me. And, like, just picking on me because I always had a big backpack, carried all my stuff in it. And apparently that's something I take on people about. But he pushed me to the ground. I threw my bag on the floor and I pushed him. And I remember what my teacher told me. You know what? Always think they're gonna hit you. That's what they always said. Always think they're gonna hit you. And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna hit me because I pushed him back. And what did he do? He swung and I just dodged it like my teacher always taught me. And I felt that connection between my teacher. I know far away my teacher knew that Andy did right. But once I dodged, I punched the kid. And he didn't go down, but it was enough to be like, okay, this kid is fighting back now. And way before that, a crowd already started and we got shut down. But ever since then, ever since I threw that hit, even through my high school years, I never got picked on ever again, just because I guess I showed I'm not standing for getting picked on anymore.
Cool. Okay, so here's how I would revise that. So to start off, say when I was younger, I was a little nerdy kid, and maybe I still am. I don't know. Or you could say, and I still kind of am inside.
Okay.
All right. Then you can say, okay, and then so kids would pick on me a lot, and the only person who would really stick up for me was my mom. You know, she would try to like come to the school or call the teachers and stuff, and that just made it worse for me because it was like, all right, my mom's like fighting my battles, so that made it even worse. Then I would jump to, so I told my dad that, you know, I wanted to learn how to protect myself, and he was encouraging. He was actually a black belt in Taekwondo himself, so he wanted to teach me Taekwondo, but I didn't really feel like that was a good fighting art. Like it wouldn't really pan out, you know, on the street. And I was also really good with my feet. I skateboarded and all that stuff. So I wanted to do Muay Thai, which is all about kicking. And I had seen like movies and like, so I, pictured myself doing like these crazy spin kicks and all this. So, so I started taking Muay Thai, and I had a great teacher. And then I would say why he was a great teacher. So, he was really patient, and he taught me like self-discipline, and he was very encouraging. Now, if you teach anything now, you could say, and so I try to be like that now with the kids I volunteer with, or in the place that I teach, or whatever.
Okay.
And then you could say, and then this one day, sure enough, this kid who was like a lot bigger, he like hit puberty in like 5th grade. So you add a little funny detail, and that's like your thoughts looking back. That's like your kind of exaggerated caricature of the situation. And you say, so one day he like hit my bag, or I can't remember what exactly happened, but he hit your bag, and so you pushed him, and then your teacher told you that you should always expect that the person's going to punch you. And so sure enough, he did, and just like I was trained, I dodged it and swung and connected pretty good with him. He didn't go down, but I got him pretty good. And by that time, there was a crowd, so they all, got in. The teachers got in the way and all that. But no one ever picked on me ever again. And I was still a nerd, but no one ever picked on me because they knew that I would stand up for myself. So it just kind of showed me that a lot of times, and of course I was nervous when the fight was about to start, but it just showed me you can be scared, but if you could just have that one moment of courage, a lot of times it'll just make a difference on how people see you, and the kind of it'll stop a lot of bullshit that's happening to you. So I've tried to remember that. A lot of times if I'm nervous or scared, whether it's maybe something at work where I have to stand up for myself or something, a lot of times you just let people know that you're not a pushover, and they won't mess with you anymore.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, man, that's great.
Okay, cool. Let me give you a list. Can you write this down?
What was that?
Can you write this down, like notes? Take some notes.
Oh yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I got a paper here.
Okay, so before we stop, this is kind of going to prepare you for the next lesson. So I'm going to give you a list of simple/social questions, the SQ part, and then I'm going to give you a list of common me questions. So some simple social questions. Where are you from? What do you do? Are you in school? Do you go to work? Where did you grow up? If it's out at night or at a social event, what are we celebrating? How's your night going? Is okay. Who are you here with? Trying to think if there's any others. How's your weekend going? How's your night going? These are all very simple questions. Now, it might sound boring, but that's not the point. What's important about these questions is that they're easy, and they lend themselves to a great follow-up me question. What's going to make it work, though, is that that middle part of the statement when you go first. So those are some simple social questions. Now, me questions. The first one is why. What was that like? How did that feel? Or and you could just change the tense. How does that feel? What's that like? What made you think that, or what made you do that? Another question is, what do you think about blank? What's your opinion on blank? Hypothetical questions are great. If you could only pick one thing, or if you could pick three things, or what's your favorite whatever, and then why? Some other ones. Obviously, opinion, your favorite. What made you do X, Y, Z? What changed? So if there was some sort of life change or thing the person did that was different in their life, say what changed for you. What are you like when? So put them in a hypothetical scenario. You could say, what were you like as a kid, or high school, college? What are you like with your friends? Like what, with different, in a group of friends, there's sort of people play different roles. So, you could say like, are you the mama bear? Are you the princess? And this is a little bit of tongue in cheek there, where you're sort of, it's kind of playing, you're kind of teasing a little bit. And of course you can get, you can get into silly hypothetical scenarios. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be? What would your name be? If we were, I don't know, what's another one? If we were criminals, what's the first crime we would commit? I'm sure I could think of better examples, and I'm sure you could too. But you can kind of see where I'm going, and this is all about focus. Where are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to whether or not she likes you, or are you focused on learning what makes her tick, what motivates her, what's important to her, how she sees the world, and really try to get inside her mind. And so you almost want to the best of your ability, see the world through her eyes for a couple moments as she's telling you. And then when you can do that, now you know her better. She can tell that you know her better, which makes her more comfortable with you. She also sees that you have standards, because why else would you be asking these types of questions? So immediately it looks like you're a man who is used to being with desirable, high-quality women. You're not worried about what she's thinking of you, which indicates that you're comfortable with who you are. It indicates that you're not insecure about your abilities in bed. And more than anything, she feels seen with you. She feels like she can be herself with you. She can open up to you, and it's okay. It's safe to do that with you. And obviously, there's a sexual implication there, but it feels good to be around someone who really knows you, and they like you, and they accept you. So a lot of great stuff is happening when you are able to do mental experience conversation. All right. This is the exercise we're going to do. I want you to email me a random word.
Okay.
I'm going to write you back with a me statement, and I want you to respond with the me statement.
Okay.
And so we're just going to start threading with me statements.
Okay.
And then we'll do that a few times, and then we'll switch over to me questions.
You want me to start tomorrow or now, or?
Yeah, as soon as you get to a computer and email. I mean, I'll probably get back to you tomorrow, but we'll switch over to me questions after a little bit of this, where I'll throw you you'll throw me a random word, and I'll ask you a mental experience question based on that random word.
Okay.
Right?
I think I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to you on email now. And I'll get this uploaded probably tomorrow to probably Dropbox.
All right, cool. Cause yeah, I want to put this on my iPod and I'm going to work and whatnot.
Yep. It's good stuff.
All right. So then I guess I'll email you tonight, and I guess I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. And also $90. I'll probably get it this weekend. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Yep. Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye. Okay, and then I should do homework. Okay, so a great homework exercise you can do this with a buddy. You can do this with someone else in the program, or you could even do it. I'll start a thread on the forum where guys can practice mental experience conversation. You take a random word. You can actually go online and find random word generators. And I like to use nouns, so select nouns if you do that. Take the noun, and then it's almost like free association, where you get a random word and then you just say what first thing that pops in your head. Only in this case, you're going to take the word and you're going to think of an actual thing that happened to you, and you're going to describe that event through mental experience statements. Then what you can do is take a random word, and using that word, ask your partner, or just an imaginary partner, or you can do it on the forum or wherever, a mental experience question. So, an example I gave the examples of the statements, but, some examples of mental experience questions would be, Obviously I got books in front of me, so I say, random word is book. What's your favorite book? All right. Person tells you, and then you say why. Why is that your favorite book? What did you like about it? Obviously, going from the statement SQS, the excuse me cutie thing. Simple question. What do you do? What do you do for work? Or what are you in school for? Person says nursing, or if it's a work thing, person says I'm an engineer. And then you can ask, what do you like about it? How's that going for you? Why did you decide to do that? What's your favorite thing about that? Another random word. I'm just kind of looking around my room to think of something. Headphones. What kind of music do you like? Why? Or what kind of music do you listen to when you're trying to focus? For me, it's like minimal house music, like deep European kind of house stuff. I don't know why. It just gets me in the zone, but I'm not going to listen to that. If I'm in my car, maybe I'll be listening to something more like hip hop, or maybe some old school reggae or something like that. And then you ask why. So if someone were to ask me that, I would say, well, I grew up listening to hip hop. I like the rhythm of it. Anything that I listen to has to have a lot of rhythm, the bass line. It kind of gets me charged up. It almost feels like motion, like I'm moving through life. And it's the same with the house music, only it's a little more subtle and it's just kind of very repetitive. So if I'm working, I don't get distracted by any words. And I can't work if music has words in it, because then I listen to the words. Okay, so you can see I'm just talking about my mental experience. All right, so those are some exercises you can do. And like I said, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about more sort of simulated interactions at a bar, or cafe, or wherever you meet a woman, and how you can start with the simple question or the social question. You make the statement, and then you ask a me question after that to get the ball rolling. And the cool thing about this is this leads to very fast escalation physically, because the woman is showing you what really makes her valuable as a human being, what's really interesting about her, and that garner, or I should say that deserves or justifies you physically touching her in a escalatory way. So I think that's it for now. And yeah, all right, take care.